Greetings Commanders, this is KreeKree here and I'm an elite dangerous content creator. Now if you'd like to catch me live, you can join me at twitch.tv/KreeKree. This is where we have our weekly event called Fer-De-Lance Friday. This is when we come together to kill Thargoids to make our billions. The link to my Twitch will be in the description below. Now in today's video we're going to have a look at a beginner's Fer-De-Lance, otherwise known as the FDL. Now this is a fantastic combat ship. It's small, maneuverable, and it's got 5 hard points, so you know that it's going to be able to deal a lot of damage. Now with this build as well, because it's aimed for beginners, it means that there's no engineering needed. And I found out earlier when I was testing it that I could take on an anaconda by myself. Now without further ado, here are the hard points. Now for the class 4, I've put in a 4A gimbaled beam laser. So the beam laser is for taking down your opponent's shield. Now the reason why I've gone with gimbaled is just because that with some newer players, their aim might not be as good. So they can start off with gimbaled, but if you'd like to work on your aim, I would suggest making it fixed. As for the 4 class 2s, I've put in all gimbaled multi-cannons. The multi-cannons are there to take down your opponent's hull. I've kept them gimbaled just because it'll be a lot easier for you. That way if you do decide to go with a fixed beam laser, then you won't have to worry about making sure that all your multi-cannons hit your target. So keeping them gimbaled is perfectly fine. One thing that I do need to mention about gimbaled weapons is that if your opponent uses a chaff launcher, it means that the aim for your gimbaled weapons will be scrambled, which means it'll be a lot harder for you to actually hit your target. So going with a fixed beam laser, if you choose to do so, will help you combat against that chaff launcher. Now moving on to the utility mounts. Now for the utility mounts, there are 6 spots and they are all A-rated shield boosters. This is as it would sound to boost your shield capacity and resistance. So they all boost your shield by 20%. So if you add that all up, it's a fair amount of shield boostage that you have. Now to the core internal. Now for the armor, I've gone for a military grade composite. This is so that you do get that hull boost of 250%. It does mean that with the hull, you're still vulnerable a little bit to kinetic and explosive damage. Your thermal resistance is still at 0 though, but with that hull boost, it's definitely a huge help so that you can stay in the fight for longer and you're more likely to take down your opponent. Next I've gone with a 6A power plant. This is so that we have enough power when your hardpoints are deployed, because they are obviously going to use power, especially your beam. So making sure that you have enough power is definitely essential, because otherwise, unless you have some power priority set up, then some modules will shut down. But as you can see here, when your hardpoints are retracted or deployed, you still have enough power. Next I've gone with 5A thrusters. This is because the FDL is really fast, so having A-rated thrusters really helps with adding to that maneuverability. So getting behind your target and taking down maybe a targeted module, or even just attacking them from behind really does help, especially if your opponent is a larger ship, because typically they're not able to turn around as fast as you can. Next I've gone with a 4A frame shift drive. So naturally this is to try and keep your jump range as high as possible, making sure that it's A-rated. And obviously if you were going to increase the jump range from what it is at the moment, which is about 12 light years, if you wanted it to be more, then you'll need to unlock the Engineer Felicity Farseer, which I do have a video for that, so if you're interested in doing that, check out the video here. Next I've gone with our 4D life support. This is just so that you can keep your module as light as possible, increasing that jump range. And with the emergency life support being 7.5 minutes, you typically would have enough time to get to a station, but you would especially have more than enough time if you use this system 𝗕𝗬𝗓𝗕𝗓𝗔𝗬, just because the main station of that system has a range of resource extraction sites really close to that station. Next, I have a 6A power distributor. I always put in an A-rated and the largest class power distributor for my combat ships because I want to be able to have the best amount of capacity and recharge rate for my weapons, engines, and systems because of being in that combat situation. And lastly, for the core internal is the 4D sensors. Now, you don't necessarily need to have a higher rated sensors. It does increase your range and such, but you don't necessarily need higher than a D. And the reason why I have gone with D is just so that I can try and keep the jump range as large as possible by putting on the lightest module available, which is always the D rated ones. Now to the optional internal. Now for the shield generator, I've gone with a 5C bi-weave shield generator. This is so that we can have the fastest recharge rate for our shields. The shields go down a little bit faster, but because of the 6 shield boosters that you have, it's not going to happen quite as fast as it typically would. And with the bi-weaves as well, the recharge rate is really high. So you're able to combat that kind of situation a lot easier. Now for the rest of the modules, I've gone with hull and module reinforcement packages. So the 2 class 4s are 4D hull reinforcements. So obviously this is to increase the resistance to kinetic, thermal, and explosive, as well as giving that extra oomph of protection for your hull. And this is obviously the same with the 2D hull reinforcement package that I have here to increase the reinforcement and resistance to those types of attacks. Now for the class 1s, I've got 2 module reinforcement packages. So these are to help protect your modules specifically from attacks in case your enemy has decided to target specific modules of your ship. For example, your power plant or your thrusters. So if they take them out, then it's going to be really hard for you to actually go anywhere. Now next I'm going to talk about your fire groups as well as your power priority. But so far, if this has helped you, then please consider subscribing to my channel. It really does help me a lot. And giving us a like and a comment below on what you think about this build and whether or not you're giving it a go and if there are any changes that you would have made. Now with the fire groups, because there aren't a lot of fire groups you actually need to assign, the only things I would really suggest is that keeping your beam laser on your primary fire and the rest of your multi-cannons on your secondary fire. I mean, it is completely up to you how you would like to set that up, but this is how I would typically set it up. And as for the other modules here, then you can set them up however you like. I have my discovery scanner on its own, and then I have the data link and composition scanners in a second group. Now for the power priority. Now as you can see, the output is always going to be 100%, and the usage is going to be whatever the amount or percentage that is used for your ship. So as you can see, the usage for this one is 94, so I'm definitely going to have enough power, as I had mentioned before, when my hard points are retracted and deployed. So typically if you went over, so that's when you would need to try and work out what modules that you would like on priority 1, being the modules that you use the most, and then the modules that you use second to most. So for example, I normally put my weapons on my second priority, or maybe my third, depending on my build of course. But otherwise, considering when everything is deployed, I don't necessarily need to change my power priority for this build. But it's definitely something you need to consider when you're building out a ship. I hope this video was helpful for you, especially with the fire groups and the power priority tips that I just shared. If it was, then please consider subscribing and giving my video a big thumbs up. And put into the comments below, as I said before, if you use this build and if you like it, if you don't like it, if there's anything that you would like to change about it, then do let me know. I'm always happy to learn. Here is a playlist for my ship builds. There are plenty of videos there that I believe that you will really like. Anyway, I'll see you over there, Commanders. Fly safe.